Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 170, and this one will be dedicated to Saturn Retrograde, which we just moved into yesterday, and we'll be going over that thoroughly in today's podcast. And I hope you're all having an amazing weekend so far, and prepared for this upcoming month of July, a very important month of the year that we've been talking about for a while now with this upcoming Paris Summer Olympics in a couple weeks. Something we decoded during the Year of the Dragon Decoded, so definitely check that out if you haven't already. And let's just jump straight into it today. But before we get started, go ahead and get relaxed, get comfortable, grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea if it's a little bit earlier in the day for you, or if it's a little bit later out there. Maybe a glass of wine or a beer or any beverage of your choice. I myself am just going with some lemon water. Nice and simple. And if you're new here to the Wolfpack, welcome. It's so great to have you here with us. And if you've yet to get access to our Discord server, just go ahead and send me a direct message on Patreon, and I will reply back to you in a Patreon direct message with the Discord server invite. All you need to let me know is your Discord username, and please don't comment that below or email me with the Discord information. I won't be able to help you out that way. Please follow those instructions I just shared a moment ago. And as for our altcoin voting system, you guys did amazing this week. Yes, last week we had a very special podcast dedicated to what I'm personally investing in, going over a lot of charts. This week, we're back into the normal swing of things. We're going to be going over about 5 different projects, maybe even looking into the altcoin market cap charts again, just kind of based on where we're at right now, moving past the recent full moon, and then preparing for this opening month of July, which, as I shared in my last couple releases, is a very important, crucial close that we have coming in later tonight. So I will be thoroughly covering that later. And just a quick reminder for those that are new here, all we do for the altcoin voting system is go ahead and look in the search of the project that you're looking for me to cover, whether that be in the search box of Patreon or in Discord. If you're not aware of how to use the search function within Discord, just ask another member, or you can YouTube tutorial search. It's very, very simple. You can just search by my name, Waters Above, press enter, and then type in the name of the altcoin, and then it will show you the likely last time I brought up that keyword was when I covered it in a Red Pill podcast. We like to give at least 2 to 3 months in between going over the same project again. So if you see that I covered that particular project like last month, then let's skip out on it. Go ahead and choose another project. So we like to give it about 3 months minimum is a really comfortable spot, so we have some new data to look at and just some fresh new chart history to analyze. This week, again, we're going to be covering some projects that we haven't touched on in a while, so that'll be fun. And then last week, I covered about 20 to 25 different altcoin charts, so a lot was taken care of in that podcast, going over my investment thesis and my wealth plan for the rest of 2024, moving into 2025. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. And again, if you're confused at all about any of what's going on, how to get access to the Discord or how to vote for the altcoins, I just shared that information a moment ago, but you could also ask questions if needed. If anything seems confusing, the Wolfpack will help you out. Now, just a quick and final update to clear any confusion. For the next 24 hours, I have this intro sale still live for this new crypto decoding blueprint. So if you want to take advantage of this intro price, you'll have until the end of the day. And you could use your Patreon member promo code, which will be in the description box below or in this post. And using your Patreon member promo code, it will give you a 20% discount. So it's the biggest discount I have available. You'll be able to get this new project for $88, so under $90 before the price increases tomorrow on July 1st. So this gives you the most affordable price at the best possible value. All the courses are a one-time payment for lifetime access. And for anyone who's invested in this new project, I greatly appreciate your support. It truly means the world to me. So for the next 24 hours, it will still be in the intro price, and probably around this time tomorrow or later into the night on July 1st, that's when the price will be changing over. So really appreciate all of your support. Truly means the world to me. Now, let's get into today's podcast. So, we have tonight's daily close is one of the most important closes of the year, specifically for the crypto market, since Bitcoin has had this recent correction, retesting the upper 50K zone, somewhere into the 58K territory, 59K. And this is important that we've had this correction. And as you can see, it was several daily closes that brought us to this deeper correction candle on the 24th of June. And today is not only a daily candle close, but it will be a 2-day candle close. And it is also a weekly candle and a bi-weekly and the monthly, as well as the bi-monthly. And it will also be a quarterly close. Yes. So this is very, very important. We'll thoroughly review this later in today's podcast when we get into the TA section. But first, I want to address something that several members of the community have asked me about, and it's this current Saturn retrograde timeframe. We just moved into yesterday, and we will be in until November 15th. So it's this big red box here, and we're going to be going back in the past and reviewing this year by year. But just really quickly, in the last podcast, we discussed 2 key dates, pretty much a 24-hour time frame between July 5th and July 6th. So definitely check that podcast out if you haven't already. But some of you might already be aware that this upcoming Thursday is 4th of July. The stock market will be closed for the U.S. Independence Day. You could always just go over to the NewYorkStockExchange.com, NYSE.com. And it'll tell you all the holidays where the stock market is closed. So we have this upcoming Thursday, 4th of July, stock market will be closed. And then we have the crypto markets obviously trading alone on this date. And then naturally the following day, everything will be back trading together on Friday, July 5th, into the traditional markets weekly close. And that was the date from the Decode last week, connecting July 5th, which I'm going to be showing you right now. Just a quick recap. Got July 5th, 2024. And we're connecting this to the upcoming solar eclipse on October 2nd, 2024. And these connect by 89 days. Remember, this is also the first day of Rosh Hashanah, which is effectively the last day of the year 5784. So in the Hebrew system, the year 5784, and that reduces or adds up to 24. Now these dates are 89 days apart, and 89 is the 24th prime number. So we have some important connections here. Then if we include the end date and we go backwards from July 5th and we go to the following day, really quickly, let me show you April, the previous solar eclipse is what I meant to say. Oh, by the way, guys, I got a new microphone. This is like a kind of like a rest in peace moment of silence thing for me, because my microphone that I had to, get rid of has been with me for years. It was really sad moment. But this new microphone is a little taller and it's completely covering my keyboard, so I have to get used to it. But I hope you guys like the sound quality if it's not the same, if not a little better. But I started to run into some issues with that last one. It was like it kept disconnecting on me. And anyways, problem solved. The microphone, I believe, sounds crystal clear. Rest in peace to my old microphone. It will be missed. But sorry if I'm a little bit choppy today, because every time I want to go back to the keyboard, anyways, learning curve. I'm sure you understand. So we're connecting July 5th to the backwards 89-day connection. We did it forwards, now we're doing it backwards, and it connects by 89 days to the last solar eclipse. Now we just connected it forward to the solar eclipse that's coming up, and now we're connecting it with the same number of days going backwards. So this is like a ripple effect of time, with this being the central point right after the 4th of July. U.S. Independence Day. And we just had this debates going on. I'm not going to be talking about that today, but like with those debates going on in the month of June, where typically we have debates going on in September, October, it's pretty weird how early they were, and no one attended them. So yeah, Very, very strange times. Anyways, getting back to this, July 5th, April 8th, 89 days apart. You guys have been hearing me talk a lot about this solar eclipse because it's the Great American Eclipse. So anything that connects to it I find to be crucial. And then the fact that we have this following solar eclipse, which is on Rosh Hashanah, and it's also this 89 days. This is powerful. Now, the following day, July 6th, this is another connection we were making because it ties to the actual day of Rosh Hashanah, the true Hebrew New Year, by 89 days. And then this day of October 3rd leaves 89 days left in the year. Then in last week's Decode, I dove into the connections with hafnium. It was the 72nd element in the periodic table, and it had the atomic mass of 178, tied to July 6th, the day that leaves 178 days left in the year, and how July 6th is 178 days after the Bitcoin ETF was approved on January 10th. It's just an absolutely wild decode, probably one of the best yet in regards to just a single date. So yeah, July 6th is big. These dates of July 5th and 6th are really interesting based on this code. And we also know that this upcoming new moon will be July 5th into July 6th. So it's right there. It will be a new moon in Cancer, I believe. Yes, new moon in Cancer. And the sign ruler of Cancer is the moon. And we also have the moon in Gematria giving us 57, and July 6th, the date that we're decoding, has a 57 double-digit date numerology. So I'm not just pulling this stuff out of nowhere. This is incredible connections. Also, if we look, the standard date numerology has 21, Moon has 21 in the following cipher, and also Saturn has 21 in multiple ciphers, and this date lands on a Saturn day. So very powerful. This is powerful stuff. And of course, with the traditional markets being closed on this Saturn day, we'll have to see how this affects crypto, because Saturdays have been very low volume lately, and Mondays and Tuesdays have just been wild. It seems that Wednesdays have been big pivots to the upside and to the downside, like our extremes in the data are happening on Wednesdays, but like Mondays and Tuesdays are huge volume injections. And we also see that that was the case last Monday, with this huge red candle that we had with a wipeout down to, pretty much retesting the prior lows, which we brought up to consider because of the 200 exponential moving average, which was right here. Let me turn off some of this noise so you can see. And now we have these 200s coiling together, about to cross. So this is a big update, the couple of bearish signals in play here, but now we've been sideways for long enough, coiling up for long enough. We've had so many rejections at 71,000. We've had 2 back tests at this lower level right below 60K. Bitcoin's getting ready to make a big move. I mean, what are we sideways now for 120 something? So 4 months. All right. This is a long enough time. I remember vividly when we were breaking out into late February, into March, a lot of people were just thinking that we're going to keep going and going and going straight to 100K, and that the alt season was going to happen right then. I was very against that idea. It was a little bit too soon, a little bit too early, and I was, at the time, letting people know that you don't want us to go straight to 100K. That's not going to be a healthy bull run. It's going to end a lot sooner than you'd like, and it was necessary to build some structure, to have some sideways, boring, lots of fear coming back into the market. I believe even fear and greed has gotten back to it's probably 30. Okay, it made it back up to neutral, but yesterday it made it down to the 30s, so we had a dip down, and that's a sign of what retail is feeling, but also what we're going to see be a reversal point, because when we have extreme greed in the market, that's typically when the market maker starts to sell off and trap bulls at the top, and then when we have fear entering the market, it's just naturally the opposite, right? So keep this stuff in mind, because in my last decode, I was clear that I feel this upcoming new moon, which is tied to this decode I just reviewed again, of July 5th and July 6th, should actually be a pretty bullish time frame leading into the first quarter moon, and then we'll reassess then. Okay? So Mondays and Tuesdays have been really powerful. Tomorrow's a Monday. Tuesday, we have this upcoming Wednesday. 4th of July, the market's closed, and then the decode date of the 5th leading into the 6th. Okay, So, got that new moon next week. Very important. We also talk about the window of time around a new moon and around a full moon. I'm kind of actually what I really want to do is we'll get into the Saturn retrograde analysis, and then we'll kind of finish off and refine some of the other thoughts we have about this upcoming new moon in particular. But for now, all in all, this upcoming week starting tomorrow, which is the 27th week of the year, it's very important. It's significant because we have that 27 code tied back to Jupiter with 27 in Chaldean. And I've shown you over the years, not just this recent decode that I did of the Year of the Dragon, but over the years, I've been talking about the Jupiter symbolism in the upcoming Paris Summer Olympics, which also kicks off this month of July. It'll be opening up on July 26th. And remember, this upcoming Olympics is the 33rd Olympics. 33, master number of transmutation. And since it's hosted in France, it's making me think how France actually lost the World Cup last year to Argentina. And then Argentina started to go through some serious issues with their currency, just the collapse of their peso. Energy is being balanced right now, guys, okay? So there's definitely some residual energy to consider here with France losing the last World Cup and the 33rd Olympics that's going to be coming up very soon. This month of July will be in Paris, France. And this will also be the third time in history that the Olympics is hosted in Paris, France. So you have that 333 code, the ascended master number. And they're showing you the current symbolism of this Paris Summer Olympics is the flame. Let me show you real quick. So it's the flame, and it also looks like a woman, like a woman's head with the lips pretty clear, this type of haircut. But yeah, it's a flame. And this is Year of the Dragon symbolism. I told you guys to expect many fire rituals this year. We had the one that happened on April 15th in Copenhagen. Well, technically it was April 16th, I believe, in Copenhagen. But then we just had another building on fire in Copenhagen, Denmark, just like a couple days ago. You're going to see a lot of that. Even bridges going on fire. Lots of issues with bridges this year, too. Take that for what you will, right? Like we talk about these bridge currencies and this type of language, this Aquarian economy speak, you know? And I think there's something to be said about this. Of course, when we think of the Olympics, we think of the torch, that kind of flame symbolism tied to Libertas, Statue of Liberty, Ma'at. We could keep going. There's so many of these, Justicia. There's many mythologies that carry this symbolism. Also Apollo, Apollyon, it's all the same. Columbia, I could keep going. But the point to be made here, we got female flame, all right? That very much is like the Statue of Liberty. Liberty symbolic of this free world, also change, you know? Confiscation of lands and a new winner. So maybe that's what the symbolism is here. I can't get too deep into that now, but it being the 33rd Olympics does make me feel that this Olympics that's coming up is going to get ritualized, and that shouldn't be new to anyone here unless you're new to the work. But I've been saying that for years now, since podcasts that I've done with Logan over at Decode Your Reality. Even chats that I've had with him and Archaics, I've talked about some of the stuff that I feel could be connected to this upcoming Summer Olympics. So anyways, as I said, we have this 33rd Summer Olympics, or 33rd Olympic Games. It'll be in Paris. We've had 3 Olympics in Paris, and the last time the Olympics was hosted in Paris was exactly 100 years ago, back in 1924, which was during the Roaring Twenties. And a lot of you have heard my theory that we're in the Roaring Twenties right now, and it will go very similarly. We had Spanish flu in 19... Oh, God, I can't say that. We had the Spanish germ in 1918, and then the repeat of the ritual in 2020 with C19. It was a 1-to-1 copy. It lasted 2 years and 2 months. Both events lasted 2 years and 2 months. It started in the month of March. Both started in the month of March. It started to ease up in the month of April, May, literally by May. Again, 2 years, 2 months, 22, master builder, master destroyer number. It was a ritual, right? We're all aware of this. Now, we have this Roaring 20s theory that I've been talking about for a while. I'm not going to spend too much time on that because I don't want to confuse people, but needless to say, that until the next Shemitah year, which let me just show you really quickly. We have 2021 was our last Shemitah plus 7. We're getting into 2028, into 2029. And then we have Agenda 2030. That's the setup. So all this stuff going on right now with BRICS and CBDCs and the transformation of our economy, it's just in the infrastructure building timeline. And remember, the way the apex predator likes to work is problem, reaction, solution. It's like this Hegelian vibe. So they need a problem. And that's the hyperinflation we're seeing right now, and then war. It's just how they do it. So keep this Roaring 20s idea in mind. I also find it funny that this cultural moment, Roaring Kitty with GameStop, and how GameStop is exactly like the way they were speculating back in the 1920s and what led to that bubble. It was just a bunch of money being poured into a dying idea. And it was being held up by the belief of a couple of people that were pushing and I don't want to disrespect anyone. That's not the point here. I have no idea who Roaring Kitty is. I have an assumption that they're just an industry plant, but that's not what this podcast is about. I'm just using my intuition, and I feel like we're in the Roaring 20s again because of what we're seeing happen on the world stage. Some people are absolutely struggling so badly, but we have these technological advancements and these high quality things that we could be a part of if you have the money. That is exactly like the 1920s. Not everyone was doing well back then. It was just Hollywood painted a picture of it being really well, but it was in reality only well for a select group. Anywho, let's get back to today's podcast, kind of wrap up this thought. Let's actually just get into the Saturn retrograde analysis, reviewing each year in the Bitcoin chart, going back over 10 years. So we'll be going back to 2015 year by year and seeing how Bitcoin behaves during this 4.5 month phase that we just entered yesterday and will be in until November. So this is going to be super experimental because some people come to my channel and they have these questions about the astrology and they want to know, but they're learning about it based in these astro charts. And I like to just cut that part out and go straight to what is going on with Bitcoin during those times. So I went ahead and mapped out each Saturn retrograde. So when Saturn goes retrograde, all the way back to 2015. And we're just going to have fun right now and go back month by month. And I'll share some words of wisdom along the way, but this is very experimental analysis. Let's just have fun. So let me turn up the 200 EMA and just see if there's any patterns I could find here. So I literally did this where I just mapped out these boxes and then I wanted to do this live with you, like not take any notes. It's just freestyled. So we have 2023. We're looking at between June 17th to this time frame of early November. And as you can see, we bottomed right before Saturn retrograde and then pumped up pretty nicely over the first week or so, topped during the following new moon. And you see where this new moon was? It was in July. That's kind of interesting. Then we have this distributional top, a little bit of sideways in August, and then recovery into October. Fascinating. I'm going to skip actually going back to this one because it's a similar kind of distributional top vibe. It was just pushed a month later. So you see how this was June into July, still sideways, and then we had this new moon in August, just 1 month later, but you see this distributional top. Let me show you in another chart kind of what I mean by this. So this was last year's Saturn retrograde. Let me turn off everything and show you why I'm comparing these two. So we have this distributional top here, which tops in August, and we have this distributional top here, which topped in July. But similar style, you see how it ends with these twin towers candles? Also here, it ended with these twin towers candles. So like one candle peaks and the other one has the equal amount of losses. And then we dig deeper, have a little bit of a lower high bull trap followed by a deeper sell-off. Same thing here. So we topped twin towers candles, had a little bit of a sell-off, a little bit of recovery, but really that was just a lower high, and that followed by a deeper sell-off. Sideways in this backup phase, and then recovery into October. Here we have sideways recovery into October. Just please keep this in mind, because if we do have a sideways and down July, which typically goes against what we see during presidential election years, at least we have some data to work with and we're not just looking at it from our opinions. Okay, so we reviewed here this distributional top and how I feel like it's actually quite similar to this distributional top here with the same breakout timeline, October. Okay, keep that in mind. Now here we have the start of Saturn retrograde, and it was met by a dump, but very important to mention that this was a lunar eclipse in a lunar cycle. So this time right here was around the time that Terra Luna pretty much went to zero. Right here, it was in this full moon, and then we entered eclipse season. So this is a very funky time frame, but this type of dramatic move, just pay attention to it, because you're going to see some parallels. And one of the first parallels will be this one right here. So this was the start of our last lunar cycle. Right here, we had a lunar eclipse. By the way, I'm doing this all off the top of my head. But if you have my crypto decoding blueprint, you know I go through step by step all of the lunar phases, solar phases, the numbered eclipses, 1, 2, 3, 4 solar eclipse, how each one of them affects price action. Yeah. So I go over that very, very thoroughly in this crypto decoding blueprint. Again, for the price that it is, just those couple of videos that go through that, insane value. But we had this deeper correction right into the start of Saturn retrograde, but this was an eclipse, a lunar eclipse in a lunar cycle, start of the lunar cycle. Look at the behavior on the 200 exponential, how we got below it, but then we came back up to it, rejection, and then once we cleared it, a back test, another back test, and then topped. This 200 is a huge level for us to consider, and now that we're back testing it recently, almost back testing it, keep that in mind for this month of July. I think we should be open-minded to it. Also, look at over here. This was during the month of July. You see the way that we corrected into the July full moon, and that was as low as we went. I mean, we did go a little bit lower in June, but this is another like down and sideways weird July. As I told you many times, we have the presidential election year data showing us that July is pretty solid. But now we have the stock market at these crazy overvalued levels. Could this July be different and be more like a typical July for Bitcoin in regards to the traditional markets? Sure, why not? But sideways is really kind of the name of the game here. We could see that was the case. This was July, actually did pretty good into the July new moon. And then look at that. That was pretty much as high as we went. Over here, the July new moon. That was as high as we went, and then recovery in October. There's some weird relationship with the July new moon for Bitcoin. Even here, not as clean, but again, it was the start of a lunar cycle. Let's go back here. We already went over this one. This one might be significant because it was started on the halving. So Saturn goes retrograde literally on the day of the fucking halving. Crazy. It's kind of like we just had this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus on the day of the Bitcoin halving in this cycle. Pretty crazy. Something that only happens like once every 84 years. And it happened on the Bitcoin halving day. Anyways, you see this sideways and then pump distributional top. We went over this already. And then this release of energy into October. We have July 5th, or the full moon in July, likes to seem to be the lows. Very, very interesting. Flat July. Now, here we have this phase where we entered this Saturn retrograde and we're just bullish, about 50% through. Big moves. So when this was introduced to me, this Saturn retrograde idea, it was introduced to me by about maybe 5 different people. Well, they were asking me about it, my take on it. And a lot of the time they were saying it should slow things down. I'm not trying to quote, or I hope the quote is, on point with what the astrologers are teaching. But I don't see where that's really the case. It seems to be a very volatile time frame. I know there's a little bit of sideways, but damn, a lot of these have huge moves. Look at this. This move right here during Saturn retrograde, 80 fucking percent. And right here, a 40% correction right when it starts. And then here, from the start of Saturn retrograde, literally the start, what is this, 100% correction? 100%, yeah, 170% move in 2 months. These are big moves, guys. Now, but is it because of Saturn retrograde, or was this because this was the start of the solar cycle? That's what we have to ask. When I was going through this, I was wondering, does this really have any effect on the Bitcoin price? I don't really think so, even though it's related to Saturn. If you went through my crypto decoding blueprint, you'll know. Bitcoin's not Saturn. Satoshi is, and that's different. Just like you are different from your mother and father. They created you, but you are not literally exactly them. You've borrowed some of their data, their DNA, but clearly you have your own path and your own life. We even see this with siblings. We've seen situations, especially me, because of the position that I'm in, which I'm very honored to be in. I'll meet people that have brother, sister that are only 1 year apart, or maybe 4 or 5 siblings, and they're the only one that is conscious, that's really awake, yet they come from the same parents. So this is, I'm just letting you know here to be open-minded to this stuff. I like to just remove all the astrology charting information and go straight to the Bitcoin chart. Let's see how this behaved during this timeline. As of right now, I can't say that it slows anything down. This is an insanely volatile time frame. Look at this. 150% in 50 days in this Saturn retrograde. Very similar to right here. Also, this huge correction here, it had nothing to do with Saturn retro. It was just because it was a lunar eclipse in a lunar phase. That's how these things go. So what I teach is that when we're in a solar phase, we see solar eclipses are times that we typically surge into. As we get closer to the solar eclipses in the solar cycle, things are looking good. But then when we're in a lunar cycle, all the lunar eclipses are very bearish. This is where we see huge corrections, as we did over here. This huge correction, which was also coincidentally Saturn retrograde, that was a lunar eclipse in a lunar cycle. Same thing here. Now, this was during a solar cycle. After the solar eclipses, pump inside of that time frame. I think it has more to do with I know it has more to do with the solar cycle and the lunar cycle than just this Saturn retrograde concept for Bitcoin. Now, I haven't back tested this on the traditional markets. I wouldn't have the time to, but I hope you guys appreciate me taking the time to map this all out and see it for what it is and add my commentary as needed. So yeah, here we have April 2017. From the start of this, we just pretty much went up into the May new moon. And look, July new moon, we went even slightly higher. And then we finished off higher on the August new moon. Now, let's see how long we were sideways here for. About 80 days. So we've been much, much more sideways than past cycles, and that's fine. There's, of course, this idea that we should be taking longer to accomplish, higher heights as market cap increases. That's an expectation. But yeah, this analysis is pretty interesting because I don't think it has much influence as some might think. Here we have a very important time frame because it was the halving on July 9th. So we have the month of July in mind, and we see during Saturn retrograde, a huge move to the upside. Like, there's nothing slowing down for Bitcoin during these phases. I'm showing you. Look at this shit. Look at this huge move to the upside, and look at this flash crash. I mean, yeah. So I don't think the Saturn retrograde thing is as important as some people might think. There's many other factors at play here. We already had the post-halving correction near the 200 moving average. I think we're in this lull phase and getting ready to set up for moving to the upside. And it's really the October solar eclipse that matters a lot. What we've seen is about 50 to 60 days before the fourth solar eclipse of our solar cycle, Bitcoin starts really moving fast to the upside. So if we have October 2nd, I'm telling you, is the fourth solar eclipse of our solar cycle, we would be looking into the month of August for things to start getting pretty wild. Now, we have seen these distributional tops into this August timeframe. Look at right here. This distributional top, it was sideways through August. Over here, I had this one example. We have this distributional top. We come down into that September timeframe, but it's like always August that we recover, or September that we recover. Here, lows in July came up perfectly into September, had this deeper correction and then bounced. Here in this last iteration, August was this weird kind of like pivot time frame as well into September, and then once October turned around, we moved up. Now, many of you remember though that the October 13th time frame was a solar eclipse, and we watched the market in synchronicity move up from that solar eclipse to the next solar eclipse. Bitcoin, for instance, went up 170% between those two eclipses. That's insane. And many altcoins did way more than that. So it's really the eclipses that I wanted to remind you guys of that I think have the most power here. I do not think that Saturn retro is a slowdown period for Bitcoin. If anything, some of the biggest moves we've ever seen are during that time frame. Can we have a little bit of sideways during that time frame? Sure, we always do. But keep in mind this October 2nd solar eclipse and how we still are in effectively a buy zone right now with where Bitcoin is at. Just to remind you though, Bitcoin can move up fast right now as it has in the past. Look at this. We've gotten back up to 70K within 1 week right here, over here. Within 5 days, we got back to 70K off of this huge correction down here. Within a week, we got back up to 70K. We can be back up to 70K in just a week from right now. Bitcoin's done it many times. So don't sleep on Bitcoin right now. And if altcoins that you're interested in investing in are down, which I covered many in the last Red Pill podcast, don't sleep on those. Like, this is not a time to be wanting more to the downside. That's a different form of greed. And that could really be problematic because you could be left on the sidelines and you don't want to be. Some people are asking, well, Waters, why haven't you been buying lately? Well, I've told you, I'm about 95% positioned in this market already. I don't need to add anything else. If anything, at this point, I'm just putting some garnish on the plate, like a little piece of cilantro or parsley. This isn't my full meal, though. I've already packed my bags. I was heavily invested in this market mostly back in the end of 2023. So around that last solar eclipse, around the solar eclipse that finished off the year of 2023. And then I even did a little bit of buying back April 13th. I believe I had a buy a little bit after that. And I will consider, as I said, those 3 new venture capital positions, Solana, Avalanche, and Proppy. Maybe I'll be buying those over the next couple days. We'll see. Maybe I'll even be buying some tonight. I'm really flexible right now because I don't have too much more to add to my portfolio. Okay, now let's get into this Bitcoin weekly analysis. This is very important because this is what we discussed last week with Bitcoin closing below the 13 exponential moving average. This moving average right here, the blue line, we haven't closed below that in like 200 days. And I told you, if we close below that, expect a larger correction and we could have still a move to the downside below the 21 EMA, and then still get bought back above the 21 EMA in the same week. This is not something that we don't like. We've seen this before. So let me show you, like, because some people might be asking, where do you get that idea from? Well, we see it back here. This is really important because remember, Bitcoin made a new all-time high in the month of March, in March 2017, and then had a correction to the 21 EMA. We flashed below the 21 EMA, but got bought back and held it as a support. We also saw that here, and by the way, this was the halving of 2017. This deeper correction we had, it pierced below the 21 EMA, and then we held the 21 EMA for about a month and then bounced. So that 21 EMA was the perfect buy zone for the whole bull run. Everything from the beginning of, everything from the end of 2015 till yeah, I would assume probably around March, because anything above all-time highs you don't really want to be buying. But I mean, hell, that was an amazing indicator to have awareness of back then, and that could very much be the case for right now with the way that Bitcoin's been trading. So keep that in mind, and that level as we speak is 61,333. Now, what I said in the last couple podcasts was that's my line in the sand level. I'm not changing my mind. And I also let everyone know that if Bitcoin starts closing below 60,000, so like 59,800 or 59,700, that's when I'm really starting to get a little bit like, yeah, this is not looking structurally as strong as it once did. It's looking weak now. I would have to admit that. I mean, I didn't create Bitcoin, so this doesn't bother me if this happens. Right? Don't get emotional about what I'm saying right now. Because yesterday somebody was saying, like, I'm scared. I don't know what to do if Bitcoin closes below. Well, that was the risk you take as an investor. You know, it's just that time right now where the market is super boring and it's starting to get scary for a lot of new people, and they're uncertain of what to do. This fear, uncertainty, and doubt, people call it FUD. Well, it's getting the best of a lot of people right now. I like to go the opposite. If everyone starts getting scared shitless, that's when I get excited. When everyone's super, super bullish and there's a lot of greed in the markets, go the other way. It's very simple, actually, when it comes to the investment thesis and how to de-risk. But anywho, it looks like right now we've had a strong buyback and we're holding this level. So we'll have to see later on today, because we have the Chicago Mercantile Exchange opening up. Last couple hours of our daily close, coming into that weekly close, just look at that 61,500 level, which we're effectively trading at right now. I mean, if we can bounce and get back above 62K, that would look much better. We're like kind of hovering on the line right now, so it's not promising. But again, this is Bitcoin, and I think that's where it's important for us to look at the higher time frames and see how this bi-weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, and quarterly will go. So let's do that now. We have the bi-weekly candles. We back tested the 13 EMA, looking pretty strong. This could be, though, a lower closure on the bi-weekly, so that's not looking so awesome. But you see this wick or tail to the bottom. You see that tail to the bottom and that tail to the bottom. Well, we would at least be closing above that 1, 2, 3, 4 wipeouts that we had to the downside. So it's not looking so bad, but this does look like an M pattern forming, although we did have a pretty nasty M pattern forming over here with a bi-weekly close on a lower low and another bi-weekly close on an even lower low. And then you see what that led to? So don't get caught up with these types of patterns all the time. You know, they're very much dependent on the solar and lunar eclipses than they are on just pattern trading. I think that's an important reminder for those. And that's why you're here at the end of the day anyways, because that's where you're getting these esoteric gems, right? So bi-weekly not looking the strongest. Let's look at the 8 simple moving average. So we did start to close below that. That's like opportunity zone, but again, looking a little bit more precarious. What's fun to do at this point, though, is turn off all the indicators and just look at where Bitcoin's backtesting. So you had all of these candles here on this distributional top. Here, a little bit, like literally 1 week, a little bit higher. What was this close? 63,300. But for the most part, Bitcoin's just backtesting the prior 2 tops of this double top. It's not looking that bad. even with what we mentioned before on the 13 EMA. Or, yeah. Let's go to the monthly. So this is why I said in the last podcast, closing below 60K does not look so good. It would look weak because this is a ton of resistance and it's pretty obvious now. We don't want to get a bearish engulfing candle. We had one on this week, got a little bit of a buyback, or sorry, this month had a little bit of a buyback, and now another month of resistance. And being bought up to where we're at now, as I said, 62K would feel a lot better. That's like nothing for Bitcoin to go from 61.6 to 62K. It wouldn't take too much for that to occur. It would look a lot better. But if we were to sell off below 60,000 at this point into this monthly close, that would not look so good. And that would require Bitcoin to come down about 2.5%, which I don't know if I see that happening in just a couple of hours, unless there's a black, like, I don't want to call it a black swan, but some sort of crypto only isolated, liquidation ritual. And then if that's the case, I definitely wouldn't be scared, because then it's just done on purpose, right? We've seen that happen before, actually, going into monthly closes or monthly opens. It's just, we have things going on with options and these other instruments that are at play here, and that could absolutely influence price action. But we have here, the monthly is telling a story of this isn't the worst. This could be way, way worse if we were to close below 60K. So I'm sticking to that analysis. Now we have the bi-monthly. Just closing where we're at would be enough. You see, this was a very bad bi-monthly close, this kind of spinning top structure. Let's not make this a doji, and definitely not red. Not good. This needs to close where it's at now. Again, I'm going to say it for the 1,000th time, 62K would look even better. This is looking like super strong resistance, although it's just back testing these prior resistance levels here of the prior cycle. I don't like this though. It's telling me that July could be a fake out. It could very well be another fake out month. I'm open-minded to it. This quarterly close, also, we're high above the moving averages. We never really made it into any exaggerated levels on the RSI. We didn't get super overbought. Got kind of rejected right at that overbought level at 70 into 71. Getting a little correction since. This was a cool off quarterly for sure. We had one happen here. Same thing. A cool off quarterly close, and it led to a 56% quarterly that followed, and then another green. Oh shit, that was the same thing that kind of happened back in 2016 too. Not the same, but a little bit similar. So here you have your prior all-time highs. You have this like cool down quarterly after you had this really big solid quarterly close, and then it just finished off with the rest of the bull run. This was your C19 crash, so this isn't the most fair candle on earth, but that's what led to the final. So yeah, like that final shakeout idea, it's like, are they going to do it now, or are we through it? Because May 1st very much felt like that. And then into the end of last month, we had a lot of altcoins down about 60 to 70%. So it's like, how much more could they take off the altcoins, Also, we had this RSI on the daily come down to 25 whilst we were effectively backtesting the 200 exponential. I mean, that's good enough for me. That bounce is good enough. If they want to have one more move to the downside, backtesting the 200 at this point would still keep you in higher lows, especially if you had a bullish bounce after that. You also want to look to getting back above the 8 simple moving average, which could be done today. And there's a clear resistance here around 62K. And I think that's why that level that I shared for the past couple weeks is so important. That 62K level is big, man. Getting back above that would be solid. And then you're in recovery zone if you could start getting back above your heart line, which, by the way, your heart line was around 66K. I talked about this in my crypto decoding blueprint, how if we were to have a closure below 66K, that would lead to another retest of the lows. And I shared that like a month before that happened. So that gave you analysis that came to fruition. Again, adding a lot of value to that crypto decoding blueprint. But This to me feels like enough of a correction. A little bit of a positive slope on MACD. Cross to the upside would be solid. I don't use Stoke too much, stochastic. It's fine. It does serve its purpose sometimes, but too many indicators starts to get a little messy. Again, but there's nothing wrong with using Stoke RSI. But you'll see some higher time frame crosses. Could really also help with signals. Definitely something to keep in mind too. All in all, we've corrected enough now. We're on like what, day 8, day 7 of this holding 60K level. It's looking really strong. And if we could get back above 62K by tonight into this weekly closure, I think things are going to look much better, especially with this upcoming new moon. And I showed you the pattern here. The new moon in July seems to be a great time for moves to the upside. Finally, we have this chart. This was our resistance line of this very awkward cup and handle pattern. Let me show you. And we could be experiencing a kickback right now. So this would be your kickback level, getting above this pattern after you broke below it. And for me, that 382 level is the starting point of recovery. So it's proven full-blown recovery if you could get back above 66K, but in the short term, getting back above that 62,500, 63,000 would be key. If Bitcoin gets back above that level from right here, right now to 63, will bring so much positivity to the altcoins. And then it's really when Bitcoin starts breaking above 66 and higher, that's when you'd see the Bitcoin dominance shift pretty high. But for right now, yeah, too many alts were just drained so much, 60 to 70% losses. I don't think they could go much lower. Now, a lot of people do believe that Bitcoin and like all these markets are going to crash in July. I just don't really see how that's in the cards. It very rarely happens in that month. If there is bigger corrections, it's typically during the time frame of September or, in a Shemitah, November or October. We're not in a Shemitah year, so hard for me to entertain that. And also Q4 in the Year of the Dragon is also super solid. September during the Year of a Dragon also usually looks pretty amazing for the traditional markets. So yeah, like the July thing, it's hard to believe there would be some crash unless there was some isolated, maybe geopolitical thing or something, but I don't know. I don't feel even the event that could happen with the Olympics will have any effect on the price action. But that's just my personal take on things and how much research I put into analyzing this particular year. So you got the kickback levels, and for the lows, just look to that 200 exponential on the daily. That's all you got to do. That should be a very key level. We've effectively touched down there already. If we were to start closing below the 200 exponential, that would get weird. That would really get weird. But for now, things are looking fine. Now let's move over to Ethereum. Ethereum has had a wolf cross with downside implied, with the 55 above the 8, or the 8 crossing below the 55. We got bought back up into the 55 and got rejected off of it, and now we're on day 6 of holding sideways. Pretty low volume right now. This is pretty solid zone for entries, I believe. And we got as low as 3,200, which I talked about being below 3,300 on any moves for Bitcoin down into that low 60K territory. We made it. So this is balanced out. This doesn't really need to go much lower. If it was to, though, I don't think it would put as much pressure on the rest of the altcoin market, just because the rest of the altcoin market has already corrected so much. And ETH is really much more tied to Bitcoin right now, especially now with this ETF approval. It's like it's playing its own game. If we were at this phase, though, I would feel a little bit differently. But we're not anymore. We're on like 4 months of sideways. So the alt market has drained enough. I've pivoted and adjusted my outlook now. Back in March, I was feeling more on the bearish side. Now that we made it over here, I'm flipping more bullish just because of what's been going on. So not too many more updates to share on this, but let's quickly look at the weekly. holding the 21, solid. Bi-weekly, we're holding the 8 simple. That would be nice to hold that level on tonight's close, so keep that in mind. We got the monthly looking fine. Nothing really to say here. Holding this at the higher range. No like bearish engulfing candles, for instance. Ooh, yeah, this would be solid if we could close right now on ETH on the bi-monthly, wherever we're trading at 3,400, let's call it. Then that would just be a continuation candle. So that bi-monthly is looking really good. Yeah, this quarterly is just looking like a chill out candle. And I talked about that with Bitcoin. It's very, very similar. So yeah, nothing too problematic in my analysis on the ETH chart. Let's look at XRP. Okay, XRP is sort of the same story from last week. It's just holding this like 46, 47, 48 cent level. It's really not made much progress, so I can't talk too much about that today. All of these moving averages are in a bearish posture where we have the 200s at the top side, whilst the Bitcoin chart, we have the 200s below us. So just to show you what's going on here, we have the 200s at the top, the 55 below that, the 34, 21, 13, and 8. So literally all of the moving averages on the daily chart are in a bearish posture. But we've been like under the 50 RSI level now for, let's see, the past 2 going on 3 months. And every time we get a little bit above that level, we tend to come right back down. So this is happening for a reason. Super low volatility right now for XRP. Can't really update too much on no new data. But as I've said many times, we need Bitcoin price discovery. So because I'm feeling that Bitcoin price discovery is likely leading into October, maybe it should be happening even sooner, well then the best time to buy an asset like XRP would be now. That's not financial advice. I'm not telling you what you should do with your finances, but with this being so low and so boring, that's typically the best moment. Just look at where we're at right now compared to the prior alt season highs, 300%. And then to the $3.30 level, about 600%. So this is in a very arduous sideways range. It's on the lower risk side of things right now. What I mean by that is the odds of it going and breaking structure and entering like an absolute bear market where it never recovers at all is very low. And I could tell by the way it's been building all of this sideways structure going back to the start of the last bear market. Yes, it hasn't done as well as all the other altcoins, but it's not like my position on it has changed. It's still around, I believe, 15% of my overall portfolio. Now we're moving on to Binance. This is wild that Binance pretty much made it up to prior all-time highs. Did it make a new all-time high? Holy shit. Yes, it did. What date? June 6th, bro. This thing made a new all-time high at $724. Crazy. So it's catching up. This did not correct that much in the bear market either. Just as less than Bitcoin. Holy shit. This is one of the most stable assets in the whole bear market to recovery phase. Like it didn't lose that much to the downside, and now it's right back to where things were in the end of 2021. Crazy. Well, a lot of altcoins are still significantly down and have a lot of room to catch up. Of course, the percentage gains aren't as much here, but holding this thing through the bear market into this moment today, where we're halfway through the bull run, it would have been a solid position in a high percentage of the portfolio, just by given the metrics that I just explained. Really solid. Okay, but now let's look into things a little more closely. We have a wolf cross 8 below the 55. We're starting to see resistance on the 8. This type of structure right here is showing me that it's getting a lot of resistance at the prior all-time high. And if this can't hold the supports, it's going to come back to the 786, which has been a back-tested level now all throughout March and April. And we have the 200s catching up, which is good. The fact that these 200s are now approaching $500, it's telling me that we might not see this correct back to the bottom of the 618 and that this is in effectively the final moments of like a LPS before another SOS. So it's just on a supply test to the downside, which is great. It's back testing prior all-time highs, just like Bitcoin. Nuts. I haven't looked at this project in a while, so it's pretty wild to see it doing what it's doing. Now, I don't hold any Binance token. I don't think I plan to. I'm not against it or anything. I had a really fun time decoding it inside of this crypto decoding blueprint. And in Crypto Symbolism Decoded, I dedicated Binance to a couple slides just to show the esoteric, symbolism. But I don't personally hold any. This ain't a bad chart, though. This is a great project to have held through the bear market into now. That's undeniable. And it's looking very strong now that it's had this breakout into the month of March, and seeing how it's been sideways and on the upside, as opposed to like Bitcoin has come down to some of its lower range. Like Bitcoin comparatively would have come down to like somewhere here. And this thing's holding pretty strong. So yeah, amazing. Not too much to say about this though, although we could look at where the 1618 is to get kind of an idea. Let me know. I want to delete that. Also, I hope you guys are enjoying today's podcast. Yeah. Okay, it did this in the, you see this swing high to swing low, and then how it came up to the 1618 in the middle of the cycle, and then it had the C19 crash. That's crazy how it did that. That's crazy. So that could be what's in the cards for Binance right now. It comes up to the 1618, has in the next rally phase, has a bit of a correction, and then finishes off the cycle. But that was a long 2 years. Yeah, I don't see it going that slow, but something to entertain. Okay, let's move on. Now we're at a meme coin. I have never covered this before. It's called Floki Inu. Jesus. Let's have fun, shall we? Okay, so we have this chart data that only goes back to the end of 2022, so that's technically enough for us to have some fun. It's about 560 days worth of data. We have this horizontal trading range here with a clear breakout to price discovery. So this thing is in price discovery to the downside. I'm going to be pulling a fib from this swing high right here to this swing low. And we could see this thing's already hit the 6-spot extension on a linear pull. So this is not turned on. That I don't like, especially with this double top vibe. So the idea that this is going much higher is really hard to entertain. And if you look at the way that this interacted with the 236 fib and the 200s before it went parabolic, is another big reason why I told everyone in the last podcast that if I see anything around the 200s or this 236, it's really a lot safer to buy. And a lot of projects that I showed you in the last Red Pill podcast were at that level. And then you could see what this leads to after. So this had about a 1,000% move to follow. From the bear market, it is currently up also like 1,000%. But that big D risk at the points at the six spot fib extension is something to keep in mind. Now, this is another thing to look at. We have made it past this 1618 when looking at it on a logarithmic setting, and we're holding that as a support. We also have the 200s have made it all the way up here now. So could this just be building structure for the past 4 months at this higher level to prepare to launch into the next leg higher? For sure. But we have to see if it holds these lows right here. I'm not even going to read this price target because it's a ridiculous number, but we have right here, we want to hold this higher lows, higher high structure. So we have high, higher, slightly higher high, low, higher low, and then about 4 months of trading here and around this critical level of the 1618, looking at it on a logarithmic scale. this could be prepared to finish off this backup phase and go another leg higher, for sure, based on everything that's going on right now in this cycle. But I won't be buying this, because just look at this recent correction to where it went. It was about 200%, and then it had another 50% correction. After here, it had another 60% correction. So this moves like a shit coin. Don't get offended by that. It just is what it is. I don't like projects that are trading like this and that are already at price discovery to the upside at all-time highs. It's not interesting to me. I'm not trying to persuade you to look at this project any differently. I'm not trying to prevent you from investing in this. I'm just letting you know how I go about my investment thesis. I want to buy shit that's down here, not stuff that's already trading at all-time highs. It's just not as much opportunity, in my opinion, and you need to get much more fancy. See, when it's boring and low, you don't need to get as fancy on the upside because you've already made so much out of it. You know what I mean? Like, just look at this amount of movement here. That's 500%. Whilst here, if you got anywhere near these lows and you were able to de-risk, maybe you got a double, but then you had to deal with a 50% correction after that. It's just way too hectic, right? So if you like to actively trade, have fun. If you like paying short-term capital gains taxes to the government on a play that's that small, then have fun also. I mean, I'm not trying to change your mind on it. It's just like, yeah, we're in the last meme coin, shit coin cycle. I believe everyone should have fun with it if that's something you like to do, but I'm not going to be buying something that's this high. Just being transparent and honest. Oh, also, slow down. This does have data from the past cycle. I forgot. So you see, this is not in price discovery. I take that back. I forgot that I had a Coin Trader Pro chart next to this, but it still remains that we are within prior cycle highs. And this is a really nasty chart. If you see this blow off top in the way that it had this arduous trading range, automatic rally, this backup phase, and then this parabolic move up, followed by two 50 to 60% corrections in a row, that's not very convincing. So this has a lot of thin air between this level all the way down to this level. And if shit was to go down, that would all get swiped through, because you see there was no structure built between this pump. The same thing here. Yeah, I will remind myself when I get to Chronos to look at the Coin Trader Pro chart. But yeah, this is not something I would want to be getting invested in near prior all-time highs either. But let me pull a fib. Also, I hope you guys are having an amazing day. So yeah, next big level up, we're looking at that 1618. 200%. Yeah, it's just boring to me. Like, Dogecoin right now is like 700% away from retesting its prior all-time highs. Like, okay, let me just show you. Dogecoin is trading right here. Yeah, okay, so 500% to backtest prior all-time highs. And I don't need a bet on price discovery, but if I was going to put money on a meme coin, I would want to do it that has this type of chart history, going all the way back to fucking 2014. And it's always hit the 1618 fib every time. Even in the last cycle, we extended above it. This time we're getting it close to $4. So I mean, right there where we're trading at today, let's just say we only make it to 2. That's 1,600%. With this project, very speculative, I would have to have a lot of price discovery ahead of me to get even close. So let me double click on here, make sure this level is turned off. The 6 spot fib extension is pretty common at the end of a cycle. So from where we are here to the 6, it's 1,000, which is crazy, right? That would be amazing. But you have to sell that exact top. It's a little bit more technical than all of this room up here having a lot of options between $1, $2, $3, and $4, which would be the perfect way to exit something like this in percentage breakdowns. The same way you invest is the same way you de-risk in percentages. So I'm not trying to play the game of like which shitcoin is better. It's just one has more chart history, a little bit more, I shouldn't say trustworthy, but yeah, Also, apologies, I forgot that I had this CoinTrader Pro, chart. Still, I'm not the biggest fan of the way that this project moves. Let me go back, get to Chronos later. Okay, we're going to be doing Uniswap. Been a minute. Where are we at? Okay, it's been some time since big horizontal trading range. I like this. Lots of data to work with. There's the full correction on this project. Okay, got that out of the way. Somewhere around these bear market lows. Got about 100% up, but we're at the 382 right now. And what I teach is between the 382 and the 236 is amazing. Now between the 236 and the bottom is even better, but this has come up to the bottom of the golden pocket and got rejected and came straight to the 236. And that's really usually as good as it gets after interaction with the golden pocket. So in plain English, after we've bottomed and we make it to the golden pocket, whether that's the bottom or the 702 or the top at the 786, after that, the deeper correction, it will usually finish off at the 236, usually. Here in this case, it's bounced. It's been spending a lot of time at this 382, but we did get about, let me see, a month at this middle level, somewhere around $7.50. This is in a solid zone. Looking at where it is compared to the prior all-time high is about 400%. So that's pretty substantial move, and that's not even counting for price discovery. So decentralized exchanges are fun. Uniswap has been a very big opportunity for scammers out there. It's not that Uniswap is a scammer. The technology is interesting and helpful in many ways, but yeah, it's had its fair share of scammers using that platform to do what scammers do best. But I don't really think it's had to deal with that controversy and that negativity as much. It's been holding pretty well, which is fine. It's good. Based on this chart structure that I'm seeing today, it's looking pretty solid. Not the most beautiful chart, but also not the ugliest. And I would assume if it existed before the C19 crash, it would be way higher than that moment, which is also good because there's a lot of charts out there that don't look that good, where they are trading lower or if not at the same prices as the C19 crash. That's crazy. But this is not the case for this. So I like that this has made a new higher high in the recovery. It's gotten above this level right here, which is important because this was the bull trap before we had a selling climax. So I think that's a key level. And now that we've gotten above it and we've had one last back test on the 236, I think this is getting very close to shifting up another level and making it back to this like 702 to 786, somewhere between $20 to $25. And then if it could get above this level right here at around 30, then I think this will launch into price discovery shortly after. And with the way that these altcoins can move sometimes, it could just be a straight line breakout somewhere to like a psychological level. Like here, it might be $100. And then it comes back to the prior all-time high and trades there. And what a lot of people do is they wait to get in here when really you should be getting in here. So don't sleep on this shit when there's opportunities. That's probably a pretty big gem I just shared with you. It's a good Chronos. It's a project I haven't looked at in a while too, because there were some issues with the charts over at TradingView. This is one of the ugliest charts of all time. Like you see this snake kind of, horrible chart. Just being honest. The exchange I really hope stays because it was an awesome exchange it used to have a really sick rewards program. They've kind of tinkered with that over time, as all companies have that do these credit cards with credit card rewards and referral things. But they made some really big mishaps on that. Also, I remember when this happened, this huge volume injection, this was when the app was closed down. So that was really shady. Not the most trustworthy exchange, but something that you can use for maybe some venture capital positions that are with projects that you can't normally access on other exchanges. But I'm just being transparent here. I don't have too much on crypto.com anymore now that we've seen Coinbase, Gemini, and a couple other exchanges have much more altcoins this time around than they did back in the last cycle, 2020 into 2021. And most of the altcoins that started getting loaded into Binance US and Coinbase and Crypto.com and a lot of those exchanges started getting listed in 2021 after the market already had like the first phase of alt season. So I thought that was also like a sign when you start seeing exchanges go from like 25 cryptocurrencies to 250 cryptocurrencies. We probably topped, like it was a signal back then. But anyways, now let's pull a fib and see what's up. Double click here. We go into below the 236. Okay, so kind of something I said before is if you're between the 382 and the 236, you're in a buy zone. But if you're below the 236, nearest the bottom, then it's really solid. And this never had like a true automatic rally, but we would have to call this an automatic rally. So yeah, I mean, if we could hold this level right here, it won't look so bad, but any closures below 0.075 won't look as nice. So got to make another move to the upside so that we could clear this potential head and shoulders pattern, which this would be the left shoulder, head, right shoulder. I don't think that's the case, and I'm not huge on the patterns, especially with ugly charts like this that don't really have any pattern to them. They just sort of make really big moves with Bitcoin and then contract and then have deeper corrections. Yeah, lots of psych out stuff going on. Let me see. Can't really share too much on this. This is in an interesting territory, though, with it being right below the 236. So there could be some buying opportunities here, but I am not the most bullish on this project. We're in a more Jupiter energy this year, not a Saturn energy. Take that for what you will. But yeah, Kronos is clearly Kronos, which is Saturn, Shani. Perhaps though, Q4 could be fun with this project though, leading into Saturnalia. So don't forget that. But yeah, not too much to add right now. It's not the greatest recovery. It's still an opportunity zone, but the chart is so ugly that I would have a hard time telling people that I would feel comfortable investing this. When I see charts that are a little bit more sophisticated, and they're down this low below the 236, that would usually be when I'm like, okay, I would consider this play, but I can't on Kronos, just being honest. Let's go to near protocol, and then we're going to wrap this baby up. Ooh, okay, cool. Very nice. So we have enough chart history here to look at this play by play. SOS, backup phase, buying climax, double top, M pattern, ends the cycle. There's your bull trap, which leads you to your selling climax, automatic rally, spring phase, and then this would be your SOS, backup phase. And now we've had another couple of rejections at the 702 fib. Very nice. Now, what did I tell you earlier? After you typically test the golden pocket, some scenarios you'll see a deeper correction down to the 236, at least down to the 382. So if this thing's going to hold the 0.5 fib, which was just this quick rejection here at the end of 2023, then that would be very bullish. But I do think breaking this trend right here, I'm just with my bare eyes, I'm assuming that that could be a signal of some weakness. So you had here, this was all the way from the October eclipse for 230 days. And then we broke that and it's been cascading since. So 44% correction, not crazy. Got a full 50% correction would bring us down to, let me see, like a 60% correction would be bringing us down to, yep, around $3.50. Okay, yeah, this looks fine. It's hard for me to entertain a dip all the way down to $2 on the 236. I don't believe that'll happen. This looks pretty strong. Also, one thing esoterically about Near Protocol is the logo or the symbolism is the analemma, this figure 8 pattern that the sun makes in the sky. And we're in the year of the dragon, all tied to the sun and the mythology of the sun. So green also, like dragon has green symbolism. I feel good on Near Protocol based off the symbolism. So keep this stuff in mind. It's probably be a really solid year until the end of the year of the dragon, moving into the year of the snake. And then that could be one of those projects that does well with the snake year also because of symbolism. So that's probably the perfect place to wrap up for now. Chart is looking pretty solid with the way this broke out, and the correction so far has been even healthier than a lot of other projects where we've seen 60 to 70% corrections. This has only had about a 40% after rejection of the 702s, and it's been holding at the 0.5 fib on this bounce to the bottom. So this could turn into a W pattern. It could be heading to the 888 fast. I do think this could break into price discovery for sure by the end of this year, and then on to the alt season rally. So yeah, I'm going to wrap this one up here. It's been a really fun podcast. We covered so much regarding this upcoming closure later tonight. Keep an eye on Bitcoin for that 61,400 close. Anything below 60K would be horrible. I don't know if Bitcoin could get dragged down that much in just a couple of hours, but above 62K would look much more promising, and that would be a nice setup moving into the new moon coming up in a week. So I appreciate every single one of you. Again, anyone who wants this crypto decoding blueprint at the best price, it's available over the next 24 hours. It's about $88 for you guys here on Patreon, so it is crazy affordable for how much is packed in this, how much value this has. I appreciate all of your support. All you got to do is use the Patreon member promo code at checkout, which is inside of the description box of this video. And appreciate all your support. I'll be catching you all in the next update, which will be coming out in a couple days. In the meantime, appreciate every single one of you. Much love.